In Colombia, authorities declared a state of public calamity before a possible eruption of the Nevado del Ruiz volcano. In China, the armed forces began military exercises in maritime and airspaces near the island of Taiwan to protect its sovereignty. And in Israel, tens of thousands take to the streets to protest against Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's plans to tighten control on the Supreme Court amidst increased violence by occupation forces against the Palestinian people. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Colombia authorities declared a state of public calamity before a possible eruption of the Nevado del Ruiz volcano following an increase in seismic activity. Different authorities in the Caldas department have accelerated the evacuations of families and towns near the volcano. The mayor's office of Manizales recorded some 200 families that remain in these high-risk areas. Nevertheless, some families have refused to evacuate. Meanwhile, the Colombian Ministry of National Defense affirmed that the army continues evacuation work and has the necessary equipment to improve the routes in Villa Maria, Caldas, Santa Rosa de Cabal, and Risaralda amid the orange alert that is still in effect. In Brazil, more than 1,100 cities remain on alert as a result of the heavy rains that are lashing the country. According to a report issued by the National Institute of Meteorology, the storms could cause major floods, river overflows, and violent landslides on hillsides in the next few days. The document warns that the most worrisome scenario covers the north coast of Sao Paulo and the southern part of the coast of Rio de Janeiro, which are in high danger alert, the highest issued by the Institute. Almost 20 municipalities in this area are on alert for rainfall of over 60 millimeters per hour, or more than 100 millimeters per day. In the southeastern region, a week of rain was also forecast for Minas Gerais and Espírito Santo, though the expected rainfall volume is not as high as in these places. In Ecuador, the parliament's Legislative Administration Council demanded that the commission handling the impeachment trial against President Guillermo Lasso comply with the established rules and deadlines so as not to hinder the process. The council met virtually to analyze the status of the impeachment proceedings against the head of state, whose notification had been delayed in the Oversight Commission. The resolution urged the president of the commission to avoid using an ordinary procedural regulation that is outside and not foreseen within the parliamentary procedures. Furthermore, the Legislative Administration Council asked social sectors to be vigilant in the Commission's actions so that legal security is not undermined and the Constitution is not violated. The Honduran government extends the state of exception until the end of May as part of an anti-gang drive implemented by President Xiomara Castro. According to the National Police, the measure in force since December 2022 in 123 of the country's 298 municipalities to tackle criminal violence and extortion was extended for an additional 45 days. The statement informed that the third extension was published in the official newspaper La Gaceta after being approved by the Council of Ministers. According to police authorities, the state of exception has allowed the capture of more than 100 members of criminal structures linked to gangs which commit crimes against the Honduran population. In Bolivia, police authorities say 12 people, including 2 minors, were killed in a head-on collision between 2 vehicles on a highway in the country's west. 4 people were also injured in what so far is the deadliest accident in the South American nation in 2023. The accident occurred on the highway linking the Andean city of Oruro, some 200 kilometers south of La Paz, with the border town of Pisiga. According to initial investigations, a heavy truck and a passenger minibus collided head-on. Images posted on social media showed that the minibus was almost completely destroyed. At least 6 people were wounded after a shooting at a South Carolina beach in the southeastern part of the United States. According to the South Carolina police, a gunfire erupted around 5:20 p.m. local time on Friday at a beach on an Isle of Palms, 151 kilometers south of Myrtle Beach. The incident took place during a senior skip day event involving numerous teenagers, wounding 6 people and prompting charges against 2 for unlawful possession of guns. Police are still investigating the shooting and have not confirmed if the perpetrator or perpetrators are under custody. Hundreds of people, including high schoolers taking an unofficial day off, were on the beach at that time, and there were several altercations before shots were fired. Migrants performed the Passion of Christ as they walked the way of the cross to the wall separating Mexico from the United States. A group of migrants waiting to cross into the United States participated in the traditional Via Crucis, a representation that takes place on Good Friday. The representation of the crucifixion of Jesus culminated at the border wall that divides Ciudad Juarez with El Paso, Texas. The migrants placed flags of their countries of origin, and next to them a migrant was covered with an aluminum blanket to remember the migrants who died last March 28th, when the immigration center where they were detained burned down and were covered with similar blankets. Let's take a short break, but first remember you can follow us on TikTok at teleSUR English, in which you will be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Other stories coming up, stay with us. Welcome back from the south. Russian anti-air defense shot down a Ukrainian missile of the Crimean Peninsula. Sergei Aksyonov, governor of the city of Feodosia on the peninsula, confirmed that the city's anti-air defense intercepted an incoming missile launched from Ukrainian territory. The official stressed that although the missile debris fell in the region, there were no casualties and no considerable damage to the city's infrastructure. Authorities warned that in the last weeks, the Ukrainian army tried several times to attack the infrastructure of the peninsula with drones. Hundreds gathered for the funeral of high-profile Russian military blogger Vladimir Tatarsky in Moscow after he was killed in a bomb attack in St. Petersburg. Mourners, some carrying flowers, gathered at a cemetery in western Moscow with a heightened police presence. Some supporters wore the letters C and V on their clothes, symbols of Moscow's operation in Ukraine. On the other hand, priests in red robes and carrying lit candles led a funeral service at the cemetery. Tatarsky's awards were placed on velvet cushions near his coffin. Tatarsky, whose real name was Maxim Fomin, was killed on Sunday after a woman handed him a bust that later exploded in a cafe, wounding more than 40 people. Russian authorities blamed the attack on Ukraine, with help from supporters of jail critic Alexei Navalny, while Kiev has blamed it on Russia's domestic infighting. On Friday, U.S. President Joe Biden signed a warning prolonging national emergency concerning sanctions against Russia over the situation in Ukraine. Through a statement, the U.S. head of state noted that the activities of the Russian government abroad continue to pose an unusual threat to the security of the country, which is why he extended for 1 year the state of emergency related to the sanctions. On Saturday, China's armed forces started military exercises in sea and airspace near Taiwan with the aim of protecting its territorial sovereignty. According to the authorities of the Eastern Theater Command of the Chinese Army, the military drills will be held from April 8th to the 10th and will take place in Taiwan Strait as well as in the sea and airspace north, south, and east of the Taiwan Island. The command detailed that these exercises represent a warning to separatists and external forces. They also pointed out that the maneuvers are a necessary measure to protect the state's sovereignty and territorial integrity of China. Meanwhile, separatist forces in Taiwan prepared joint intelligence monitoring and reconnaissance mechanisms and initiated drills of various kinds in response to the 3-day military exercises conducted by the Chinese military. The Chinese military drills were announced a day after Taiwan Chief Administrator Tsai Ing-wen returned from Los Angeles, where she met with U.S. Speaker of the House of Representatives Kevin McCarthy. The meeting was described by Beijing as a provocation by Washington ignoring the One China principle. In this context, the United States Representative Michael McCall says at his Taiwanese host state luncheon that the U.S. is willing to deliver weapons and military training to the island, not for war but for peace.
We are doing everything we can in Congress to speed up these sales and get the weapons that you need to defend yourself. And we will provide training to your military, not for war, but for peace.
teleSUR English continues to grow. You can now tune in from 33 different African countries through StarSat, Dial 461 and enjoy our Latin American alternative broadcast. One final short break and we'll be right back. Don't go away. Welcome back from the South. On Saturday, protests against Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's judicial reform continue amid escalating violence in Tel Aviv and the Gaza Strip. 3 months after protests against the Prime Minister's policies aimed at giving the executive branch greater power over the judiciary, demonstrations continue despite the security situation caused by the recent attacks on Friday, in which at least 3 people were killed due to increased tensions in the Gaza Strip. In this regard, despite Netanyahu's postponement of the judicial process to push forward the reform after he announced talks with the opposition to reach an agreement, protests have continued week after week in rejection of the bill, describing the talks as a new strategy of the Prime Minister. Meanwhile, a Palestinian was wounded in the leg on Saturday after clashing with Israeli occupation soldiers in the Arab refugee camp in the southern part of the occupied West Bank, while 2 others were injured on Friday in the northern region. Security sources reported that Palestinian youth confronted soldiers after raiding the Arab refugee camp. According to the report, the soldiers opened live fire and shot tear gas and concussion bombs at the youth, hitting one in the leg, a live bullet, while dozens suffocated from inhaling gases. According to the Ministry of Health, the day before, 2 Palestinians were shot and injured by live bullets fired by Israeli soldiers during a raid of the town of Burkina, southwest of northern West Bank city of Jenin. In this context, Israeli occupation authorities continue to hold Palestinian citizens in administrative detention without charge or trial, under the pretext of possessing an alleged secret file, as detailed by the Palestinian Prisoners Club. Administrative detention has increased significantly since 2022. In January of that year, the number of administrative detainees was around 500, whereas by December, the number exceeded 850. The agency said that by the end of March 2023, the number of detainees in Israeli prisons reached 1,016, including 6 minors and 1 woman, the highest number since 2003. People gather in front of the Moroccan parliament in Rabat to show their support for Palestinians. Tensions between Israel and the Palestinians reached its highest level in years following clashes inside the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem, the 3rd holiest place in Islam. Global criticism and concern mounted Wednesday after Israeli police clashed with Palestinians inside Islam's 3rd holiest site, sparking a military exchange of rockets and airstrikes with fears of further escalation.
Today, with this new right-wing fascist government, the Palestinian people are facing a very great danger. These people dream of driving out the Palestinians, of continuing this Nakba, which has been uninterrupted since 1948, by amplifying it, by driving the Palestinians out of Jerusalem, and by building more and more settlements. After the crimes committed by the occupier of Palestine on the esplanade of the mosques and within the Al-Aqsa Mosque itself, without any respect for a sacred place, a religious place, the Israeli army returned to chase away the young people who were there, to enforce the rule that no prayer will be said by any religion other than Islam on the esplanade of the mosque. That is the law.
The Syrian army prevented a terrorist attack and eliminated an extremist leader in the northwestern province of Latakia. The Syrian Defense Ministry reported that security forces foiled a hostile action perpetrated during the night and disclosed that the terrorist leader, nicknamed Abu Qatada, of foreign nationality, was killed during the engagement. The Defense Ministry detailed that several of the terrorists were neutralized, while others were wounded, and also reported the seizure of weapons. The extremist groups located in northwest of the country have escalated their attacks during the last 2 weeks, mainly in the provinces of Aleppo and Idlib. A U.S. Navy spokesman said on Saturday that his government has deployed a guided missile submarine in the Middle East capable of carrying up to 154 Tomahawk missiles. The submarine crossed the Suez Channel on Friday in what appeared to be a show of force toward Iran following recent tensions. The spokesman for the Fifth Fleet based in the Gulf nation of Bahrain, Commander Timothy Hawkins, declined to comment on the submarine's mission or what had prompted the deployment. The Fifth Fleet patrols the crucial Strait of Hormuz, the narrow mouth of the Persian Gulf through which 20% of all oil transits. The US, the UK and Israel have accused Iran of targeting oil tankers and commercial ships in recent years, allegations denied by Tehran. In Yemen, the Ansar Allah movement announced that it will not tolerate the military presence of the United Arab Emirates in the country. The member of the political bureau of the Yemeni People's Movement, Ansar Allah, Mohammed al-Buhaiti, assured that the union between the Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia to invade Yemen was a mistake. The official said that the invading forces in the country should learn from their mistakes and withdraw as soon as possible. Al-Buhaiti pointed out that the government in Sana'a reached some understandings with Saudi Arabia on the solution of the conflict that has plagued the country for the past 8 years. The Ansar Allah representative stressed that his government supports an initiative that would contribute to the peaceful solution of the conflict in the nation. In Burkina Faso, at least 44 people were killed in attacks on 2 villages in the Sahel region. Authorities registered 31 deaths in Kourakou and 13 deaths in Tondobi, as well as several injuries and property damage. The security situation in Burkina Faso worsened since 2015 following a military coup. Since then, the nation experienced successive similar situations. On September 30, 2022, a group of military officers led by Army Captain Ibrahim Traoré overthrew Damiba. In addition to Damiba's ouster, the coup leaders who claimed to belong to the Patriotic Movement for Safeguard and Restoration, like the Lieutenant Colonel, announced the constitution's suspension, the government's dissolution, and the closing of the borders until further notice. We have come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For Telesur English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.